Well, hello, mamas. Jessica Coulter here. We are talking about graduation today. We are focusing on the ceremony itself. So, before we talk about what that first tip is, all about the basics of preparing for the ceremony, I want to know, has your child graduated high school or college yet this year? So, you've got a graduate class of 2023 on your hands. I want to celebrate. I want to say congratulations. So, let me know down below, yes or no, if you got a kiddo graduating this year, and if they are, has the ceremony happened yet? And before I go too much further, before we talk about these basics, do know would love to talk to you, would love to talk to your teens to help them prepare for the next step. So there's a link in the bio to do that, but we'll talk about that at the end of the video. So let's talk about these basics. All right, what are some of those things that you need to and your teen needs to kind of talk about? What do you need to even think about when we are getting ready for the ceremony? Well, number one has to do with some of the very basics, like when is graduation? Like what day? What time of day? Like where is it going to be? Like all these little things become very important the day of graduation. Now, a lot of schools have a rehearsal. Most of the time, it's like the day before. So hopefully your child knows all about rehearsal. And mamas that are watching, if you've got a high schooler, maybe you're a little bit more involved with this because if you've got a college kiddo, hopefully, your kiddo is ready to be on his own, is ready to take that next step out in the real world, in an apartment, at a job, whatever those next steps are. But do know, the rehearsal part really needs to be your child's responsibility. But, high school parents, maybe expect a little bit more reliance on you than if your child's graduating college. Okay. So those are kind of tips 1 and 2 within our first tip of discussing the basics. So definitely, is there rehearsal? And if there is, when, where, what all does it include? Because it's not usually at the same time of day as the celebration, the ceremony itself. And number 2, what are some of those basics of the ceremony itself? When, where, all those things. Okay. Because we don't care about pictures, we don't care about parking until we know when and where the ceremony is happening. Okay. Next thing to really talk about are those invitations. Okay. We are in May right now. Your child probably graduates in May or June. And, if it's a different time, that's awesome. Maybe you got more time than I think you do, at least versus the parents and students here in the U.S., here, especially in the Midwest of the U.S. But do know if invitations are going to go out, they need to go out sooner rather than later. All right. And there's a big difference between the graduation party invites and the graduation ceremony invites. So I'm curious, do you send them together? Do you send them separately? Because, it depends on the school again. That could be something very important. A basic is how many people are allowed to go to the ceremony. Okay. I've worked at a lot of schools where you get tickets and each child can only bring so many family members, so many friends to watch them graduate. That's something you want to know before you invite a bunch of people. You don't want to invite people that don't actually get to come who want to come. Okay. And we also want to make sure if there's going to be a graduation party, well, we invite 300 people and pick a venue that only has room for 100. Again, we have to have some of these thoughts, some of these discussions before we send out any invites, before we really start making big decisions about graduation, the ceremony, and everything that goes with it. Okay. Couple more thoughts to share with you here before we go further. Do you know I'm live on YouTube, live on Facebook right now? This is just the first video in the series all about preparing for the graduation ceremony. So be sure to follow, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any other videos that we'll be talking about later this week. All right. So once we know when the ceremony is, we know how many people can go, we have an idea of, the whens, the wheres. Now the question is, okay, how is that parking? How is that seating going to work? Because, it's a matter of, do we need to plan to get there an hour early because parking and seating is going to be crazy? Do we have reserved seats? And so each kid knows exactly where his family is going to sit, and so you don't have to rush. We want to know some of these things ahead of time. Okay. Another big thing to discuss, one of the most important things I can say this video, let alone I'll probably say it multiple times this week, is do know, parents, mamas that are watching, you're going to have expectations about graduation, about the ceremony, about the party, about the experience. But so is your child. Okay, your child is getting to celebrate a big milestone. whether it's high school, whether it's college, whether it's something else in between or beyond, or even, if you've got a middle schooler graduating, that's exciting. And even the preschoolers, it's all an exciting milestone. But do know your child who's graduating high school or college specifically, we want them to have a lot of say in what happens at the ceremony. Okay, if they want to decorate their hat or they want to wear a certain outfit or they want to do this right after the ceremony, those are all things you need to discuss with your child because it's about your teen, it's about their accomplishments more so than you mamas. Okay, so that was tip number 1 for the graduation ceremony. Preparing for your child's graduation for high school or college is really having this basic information. Okay, can't create a plan until we do some information gathering. We really can't even start planning the party, really planning on the wheres, the who's, the what's, until you have a discussion with your teens. Make sure you two are on the same page because your child doesn't know what you want. Well, you're not going to get what you want. And if your child wants the graduation to be like this and then you totally change it, that might be something that's a sore spot forever, or really just kind of brings down your child's day of amazingness, of fun, of celebration. So thanks for watching. Be sure to come back and watch on Facebook or YouTube the second video, the second tip for preparing for graduation. Do also know that if your child barely made it to graduation, or maybe your child sailed through graduation, no problem when it came to grades, it came to academics, but you're really worried about that next step, would love to talk to you and your teen one-on-one for a talk with Jessie, because study skills are life skills, and we want your teen to be successful with whatever comes next. So no matter if you had a straight A student, no matter if you have a student that was D for diploma or somewhere in between, do know study skills are life skills, and they are going to make a huge difference with your teen's next step after graduation. So be sure to go to the link, choose a day and a time so we can talk. Thanks so much, mamas. See you tomorrow for the next video.